Whether playing street ball in the South Bronx or against the elites in the NBA, today's guest was an unstoppable blur, folks. Perhaps the fastest point guard ever, going from basket to basket. No question about it. He had game and he had style. And get this, he's the only player to lead the league in scoring and assists in the same season. Everyone knows him by his nickname, that would be Tiny. But when Red Auerbach introduced him at his Hall of Fame induction back in 1991, the legendary Celtics coach asked, what's tiny about a guy with that kind of heart and that kind of talent? My pleasure to welcome to the set Mr. Nate Tiny Archibald.
Thank you.
What a pleasure to meet you. Red Auerbach, that's high praise coming from an icon in the history of basketball.
He was good to me. He gave me a second chance with the Celtics. He brought me in that smoke-filled room, okay, with all the banners and stuff and all the championship pictures, and said, maybe you'll be in one of these pictures one of these days. And I couldn't see I'm like, you know,
through all the smoke?
Because all the smoke was in the room, and he said, I'm going to give you another chance. And I think that I'm blessed today because somebody gave Nate Archibald another chance. It wasn't basketball, but I had a disease, and it was a heart disease. It was called amyloidosis, and it's a hereditary disease, and it's a protein buildup in your blood that restricts the heart from beating normal. So what happened a couple years ago, I think it was in 2016, that the Players Association and the NBA decided, because there were guys that were shoulders, knees, Nate Archibald had a bad heart. So with United Healthcare kicking in, okay, gave me a second chance in life. It was a blessing that the Players Association and the NBA donated all this money, because I wouldn't be here today. I had open heart surgery. Without that donor giving me that heart, they was projecting me to be on this earth maybe 2 to 5 years.
You know what Spencer Haywood had shared with me and us as well too, now that he's the head of that organization of retired players, that the current players, led by some key guys like LeBron James and Chris Paul, etc., Steph Curry, donated that money. So a real blessing that means more to you clearly than all the other things that could have been done by these highly paid current players.
Right, because there was, before that, there were a couple of retired players that left us.
How are you doing today?
Right, I'm doing okay. Well, James, you know, we were athletes. We have a program, even though we're not playing anymore, we retired. I like walking, I like riding my bike, and I don't get as much exercise as I used to, but I still exercise. So when I was in Columbia Presbyterian, people was like, you just had a open heart surgery Friday, you on a treadmill on Monday? She said, what's wrong with you? I said, it's a program that you have that I've been exercising almost all my life. I said, I'm a survivor.
Nate Archibald talked very passionately about the challenge that he has before him right now. Well, check this out. In his Hall of Fame speech, he also said, life has been very difficult for me. It seems like you're really beholden to the guys who led the way today and some guys who have been fighting all along for ex-players.
I think that with Chris Paul and LeBron and many, many more, Curry, decided that they looked at us like, wow, these guys set the standard for us, and maybe we can help them. Help them, y'all helped me tremendously.
So often, all folks are focused on is what they're doing on the court. And you're saying these guys, no pun intended, they have a heart, collective heart, to contribute to what you guys set as the foundation for them.
Well, they gave me a second chance. When I was in the hospital, people were saying, well, you got open heart surgery. What would you like to do? I said, I don't have a bucket list. I love kids. Coaching, mentoring, interacting with these kids, making them understand that basketball is okay, but your education is more important. You can last in that educational field more than you can play.
You said that life was difficult for me. From a basketball standpoint, which obviously carries over to the game of life, what was difficult for you in terms of basketball?
James, being a student athlete early on. I mean, I was up at DeWitt Clinton High School, which was all boys at that time, in the 60s. There's a guy that I'm going to mention, and maybe people don't know this guy. His name is Willie Worsley. He went to DeWitt Clinton. I'm behind Willie was a senior. Nate Archibald was a sophomore.
Big name indeed. For sure. Go ahead.
I got kicked off that team.
Hold tight. What do you mean you got kicked off
I
the team?
got kicked off that team.
Your high school team.
But people said, well, you weren't a good player back then. I don't know where I was as far as playing, okay, but I didn't go to class. Okay, I didn't become a student athlete early on.
Wait a minute, you're telling me you're a high school coach because you played 1 year before you got kicked off.
Right.
And the coach was that concerned about you going to class that he kicked you off the team?
Kicked me off the team. But it was an embarrassment to him and not to me. Okay, because what he did was during one of the practices before we went out on the floor, he said, I need your sneakers. He said, I need all your practice gear. And I'm like, what's going on? He said, take it off now. He said, you embarrass me. He said, you know that we get your grades. Okay, we have your schedule and stuff like that. He said, you didn't go to class. He said, that means you can't practice. Okay, his name was Bob Buckner. He was in school with Coach K, and Bobby Knight was his coach. So he came from that West Point background. He didn't play around with Nate Archibald or anybody else. He said, you embarrassed me. Okay, so take my stuff off. I had to strip, take my stuff off, and he said, you can get out. He was the same coach that when I was a senior, okay, we won the city championship, we didn't lose the game. He said, I'm going to give you, and I keep using this phrase, second chance. He gave me a second chance to play, okay, and be on the team.
In addition to Coach Buckner, there was somebody else who was also very serious about you getting your education. We'll find out who that person is after this. Tiny Archibald completed his bachelor's degree from UTEP by going back to school for 3 consecutive summers. Most impressive indeed.
Well, as a former player, I went back and I was in the Bronx, and I said, let me enroll in some courses. And I tell people, it's not, James, it's not really a story. I said I was in a gray area, doing a little bit of coaching on the side, you know, going to community centers and stuff like that. I said, I'm missing something. I decided that, and people say thinking, no, I decided that I wanted to go back to school because I missed something when I was in high school. I tell people that all the time. I missed something. I wasn't a student athlete. I'm still not a good student athlete, but I missed something in high school. I was chasing a dream.
And that dream was?
It was basketball.
Okay.
And my coach, Bob Buckner, who went to West Point, I keep mentioning that because he had a disciplined background. He said, that's not going to be the answer. He said, to chase the dream is okay. But then he said, reality is going to kick in. He said, if you don't become a student athlete early on, you're going to fail.
But it sounds like he augmented, encouraged what you were getting in the way of that same kind of determination and focus from the home.
Right. My mother instilled that when I got out of, when I got there, it was Texas Western and became UTEP. I was playing in the league. She said, what happened to my degree?
Whose degree?
Her degree. And I'm saying, your degree? She said, yeah, you're going to go back and get my degree. Okay, so I went back a couple summers, and people got to understand, I went to Texas Western, which is in El Paso, Texas, and the summers is like 120, but I'm like, whoa, Ma, I can't do it.
That would be degrees.
She said, no, you're going to go back and get my degree. I don't care how hot it is, how cold it is.
My degree.
I finished up.
As great as you were in basketball, you have spent more time passionately talking about getting that degree, having that solid footprint, if you will, in education. Why is that so important at this point in your life? And why is that the message you're driving home to these kids?
I tell them that education is more important because some guys who are the greatest thing since sliced bread do not make it. They go to big time colleges and they 1 year, maybe 2 years, and they don't make it. And they never go back to school.
So now, but you've got a platform that you're standing on that message can get across. Talk about why Red Auerbach said he would give you, I love that moniker you said, second chances, kind of defining who you are. Why did he give you that second chance? What did he see in you as a player?
I think he saw some leadership, this guy played in the league for a while, and determination. You know, Red, I know he was a D.C. guy, but Red was born in Brooklyn. Okay, so he looked at that kind of roots. He knew the background and stuff like that. And the real secret encouragement was Bob Cousy. Bob Cousy was doing the announcing, and Bob was talking to Red about, man, he still could play. You know, you bring him in, he won't have to score as much, but you need more leadership. That was before, I was there before Larry, Kevin, and Robert. And when they came in, I tell people that was a blessing. And they said,
"What kind of talent?"
I said, people say, why was that a blessing? I said, because I didn't have to do anything but manage the game. Okay, those guys weren't rookies. Those guys knew how to play already.
But before he was managing the game, and we're going to talk about this when we come back, he could flat out do it. We'll quantify what that means after this. Back in the 1972-73 season, Nate the Skate Archibald upped his game big time, becoming an all-star for the first time. Check it out, folks, when he scored 34 points a game and averaged 11.4 assists. How did he become the first NBA player to lead the league in both categories? He said, my concept was to attack people. I wanted them to know Nate, was on the court. And folks, that's why he's got one of those jackets hanging in the closet now. Nate, come on, please. I mean, it's not like you're LeBron James' size or Spencer Haywood's size. What in the world drove you to that point that you didn't even think that you could do what you did back in 72, 73?
Well, before that, James, I had doubts.
About your game?
About the game.
What kind of doubts?
About the pro game. I played college basketball, and when I got drafted in the second round, it was like Cincinnati. Oscar was there before me,
Oscar
and
Robertson,
I'm like, oh my God, that's a blessing. Next thing I know, before I got there, Oscar and Norm was in the backcourt. Oscar was in Milwaukee.
Norm Van Leer.
Yeah, Oscar was in Milwaukee. I said, oh man, for somebody to mentor me, because I knew nothing about the pro game. I got there, Kuz was still, you know, the head coach. He said, your ball, your game. And I didn't understand what he was talking about. He said,
gave you the keys.
And I don't know why, okay, because Norm was there before me. Norm was still there before he went to Chicago. But he said, your game, your ball. And I'm like, for a rookie? Okay, and I didn't run with it. I had doubts, okay, because I'm looking at Norm as my mentor because Oscar was in Milwaukee. And I don't know where it took off.
But is that what enabled you to get as a blur, as we described you, to be a blur on the court? I mean, 34 points at the top level of the game and dishing out nearly 12 assists a game. Nate, that's flat out phenomenal. So what was the key? Was it your speed?
The key was I wasn't on good teams. Okay, and every summer.
But that means people were focusing on you and you were still getting it done.
Right, but every summer I went back to New York and I was still doing my conditioning, but just being with the kids. I tell people, if you want to experience basketball, okay, take yourself away from the game and coach some of these kids and see if you can teach them the fundamentals, build a foundation for them, but make them understand that education is also in the game. You learn from your weaknesses and you try to build up.
So
okay?
What did you learn about your game that you translated on the floor? You talk about the kids, that's a common thread through everything that you're talking about. But in the pro game, what did you learn about yourself that you could maximize, that you could master on the court? What did you do?
Well, I learned early on that a lot of guys didn't know about me. You know, most of the guys,
they know about
they didn't know that about the speed and quickness, and they didn't know that I like to penetrate. Some of the guys who were veteran guys, after they watch you play a couple of times, I'm backing off of him. So one summer.
But if they backed off of you, that means you could do what then?
I could learn how to shoot.
Right.
Because I wasn't a great shooter.
But so you learned how to shoot.
I learned.
So when they realized how fast you were, did you love to penetrate because you could get it off in the middle?
Right.
When they backed off of you, you were deadly, consistent on that?
No, not deadly, but I learned how to shoot the basketball because I was reading them now.
Right.
I'm backing off of this guy. This guy, you know, some of the guys, you know, like Oscar or Dave Bing, very, very good on defense with their hands and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But now I mean, people say, well, if you're playing now, how many points would you average? I don't know. I said the players are so good now and they're gifted. They're doing more stuff that it took me so long to learn that, you know, they jumping better, they're younger, okay? They got better conditioning, okay? You got better shoes, and they got personal trainers. I said, we didn't have a personal trainer.
And you know what? I appreciate you complimenting the guys of today, but when we come back for the last segment, I'm going to tell you something about what Red Auerbach, your guy, had to say about players of your era and before then. We'll do that after this. Many times in his career and his life, people gave up on Nate Archibald, which, as he said, made me work even harder, proving people wrong. And as you can tell, it's been tough for me to get Nate to talk about himself because he prefers to talk about everybody else. Red Auerbach, when he talked about players of your era and before, I had the nerve to ask him on a radio show. People were talking about Shaquille O'Neal. I said, Coach, Shaquille O'Neal, how in the world will Bill Russell do against Shaquille O'Neal today? You could hear him pull a drag on the stogie. He said, Brownie, you got the question all wrong. He said, it's not how Bill Russell would do against Shaquille O'Neal. It's how would Shaquille O'Neal do against Bill Russell. His point was, you all can still get it done today. You said you were happy when you got the likes of Larry Bird and Robert Parrish and McHale on the team. Why?
Because they were rookies coming in, but I knew that they could play. I had doubts about me, but I didn't have any doubts about them.
Even at that point in your career, Nate?
I was, you know, people talk about Larry and stuff like that. I said, they was coming in an entrance. I said, there's a exit too. I said, Nate Archibald was going through that exit door. Red Auerbach, Bob Cousy gave me another chance to be on a contender. I didn't know that we was going to win, but when those guys came in, I said, this is a chance, okay, for me to get one, okay? And then, you know, after that, it was like Christmas.
So it seems to me like that drove you your entire career because, my man, you are a Hall of Famer. As we close, what message would you want to give to the folks who are watching this about Nate Archibald? You've talked passionately about your health and where you are now. You've talked about the career, even though you still gave everybody else credit. Give a message to folks. What would you want them to learn from you?
I think basketball was good, and people would say great. Basketball was good for me. It made me, you know, learn about my educational opportunities, traveling and stuff like that. But, wow. I mean, basketball was over a long time ago, 84, and I was still interacting with kids. But I got to tell people this, the second chance that you have to do the best that you can. And I have a new heart, okay?
Literally.
And I have a new heart. And it's not like people say you have heart. I have a new heart. And I want to try to do the best I can to take care of my health and others to make them understand that it's a chance for you to live a long, prosperous life. And I'm not wealthy, but I got a new heart. I got a new feeling about me. I got confidence. I'm encouraged. And my thing is, it's not a bucket list, but I want to live for a long time to see my grandkids, my great-grandkids. And people say, great-grandkids? You got great? I got great-grandkids. I want to see them grow up, go to college, get your education. I got two that's in school right now. Okay, one goes to Buffalo State, and the other one goes downtown to New York Tech right now. Okay, and I saw them grow up. I was changing their diapers and stuff like that. And now you're talking about they in that teenage era, they're going to school, and I just hope that I'm around to see them graduate.
And there's one other thing that you have. You have her degree.
Thank you.
God bless you, Nate.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Nate Archibald has been my guest. Tune in next week for another edition of The James Brown Show.